Many Americans believe the president has a credibility problem. But does Trump actually agree? Does he see it as a problem? According to Time Magazine's Michael Shearer, who had the president on the phone for an interview a few days ago, the answer is not really. Check it out.
I also asked him about whether he thinks this sort of behavior will hurt his credibility over the long term, which is something I think a lot of people do think. And he basically gave no ground there. He said, did you see I had 25,000 people in Kentucky this week at a rally? At the end of the interview, he said, I'm president and you're not, basically restating the same thing, that the proof of my success, the proof of my credibility is the fact of the election.
For more on why the president would even agree to talk to Time about his credibility, I went to the source. Nancy Gibbs, the editor of Time, joins me now. Nancy, for your most recent cover, in bold red letters, it asks, is truth dead? So what is your conclusion to that question?
That it's fascinating that we're even having that conversation right now, which we've been having for quite some time around this president, but particularly this week, a week that began with an FBI director saying that a completely incendiary statement that the president of the United States had made was simply not true. And that comes on the heels, of course, of so many statements that were demonstrably false, that we've been having this meta debate. In addition to the incredible debate over the policies and the politics of what we've seen this week, we've been having this other debate about what does it mean? What are the implications of having a president whose relationship with truth is unlike any we've seen in a public figure probably in our lifetimes?
In your editor's column this week, let me put part of it on screen. You said, like many newsrooms, we here at Time have wrestled with what to do, what to say when someone is lying. We can point out, as we often do, when a president gets his facts wrong. We can measure distortions, read between lines, ask the follow-up question. But there's a limit to what we can deduce about motive or intent, the interior wiring of the Whopper, as opposed to its explosive impact. The word that oftentimes comes up in these conversations is lie. So before we go any further, when have you all decided to apply the word lie or not to the president's claims?
Well, we're very careful with that language because it is certainly true that we, as all journalists do, it's our business to say when any public figure has their facts wrong. But to say that they are lying requires an additional level of knowledge that it's very difficult to have of what their intention was. And the reason I think it's important is because in the case of President Trump, and this came through in our interview with him over and over again, some of the things that he says that have been disputed and completely disproven, it seems very clear he continues to believe. And so there's there's almost the philosophical, theological question of if you believe what you're saying, even if it's not true, is that still a lie? I will leave that to the academics. The more important thing for citizens is that what a president believes really matters. Their beliefs are, through history, have led presidents to take the country into war or to sue for peace or to create alliances or destroy them. And so if President Trump actually does believe many of these things that he continues to say, it has tremendous implications for the way he's going to conduct this presidency. And so I think only judging on the truth or the falsehood of the statement and not whether he is knowingly speaking a falsehood or actually believes what he's saying is an important distinction to make.
I just think some viewers think we're being too careful, being too sensitive. If we know someone has a pattern of behavior, a pattern of telling falsehoods, even when the information's right in front of his face, then at some point I think some viewers of this program, some readers of Time, just want us to say, hey, he's a liar. He lies all the time.
Well, there are many ways of saying that. I think what our audiences want is, I think they don't care much what we think. I think they care what we can find out. And so it's our job to find out when a statement is true or not, when there's evidence to back up a statement or not. Our opinion of his motives or intent or what's going on in his head, that's much more subjective territory.
Why do you think the president granted an interview to Time about this subject? I would think normally someone who's going to be asked about their credibility or lack thereof would definitely not want to talk to the interviewer.
I would think so too, except that I think he honestly, and it comes through in the interview, I mean, take him at his word, that he believes that he is not given credit for things that he has said that have turned out to be true. And he cites this over and over and over again in the interview, that he was ridiculed for or dismissed on everything from certainly the Brexit vote to whether or not he was capable of winning the presidency. And I don't think it's an accident that he ends the interview saying, well, I can't be doing that badly because I'm the president and you're not. And that's where he ends up. Everything else is sort of a transaction. But at the end
By the way, that's why I think publishing transcripts is so vital. By publishing the entire transcript, we had a real sense into the president's mind.
I think it is critically important, and in this case, to see, where every time Michael Shearer, who conducted the interview, pushed back, what about this, what about this, he came back with either part of that was true or that proved later to become, it wasn't true at the time he said it, but it turned out to be true later. So partly he's claiming some prophetic powers. But in every case, he had an answer. I think the reason he wasn't dodging the interview is that he believes he has a persuasive, defensible answer to many of these charges, which again, I think is very important for people to hear and understand.
Nancy, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Brian.
And we'll have more.